Hi everyone and welcome to my new podcast. Today we're going to talk about Lupin and Iceland. So let's get started. The Nootka Lupin is a very popular angiosperm among tourists and locals in Iceland, thanks to the beautiful colors that its flowers take during the summer. In a matter of decades, this plant has transformed the landscapes of the country, sparking controversy. Now let's ask ourselves this question: how did the Nootka Lupin, or Lupinus Nootka-Tensis in Latin, managed to turn Iceland purple? We are going to answer this question through two main axes. The first one will be the arrival of lupin in Iceland, and the second one will be how did lupin spread. It all started when the first Vikings arrived in 874, and accustomed to the dense forests of mainland Europe, they began cutting down trees in Iceland at a similar rate. However, the forest in Iceland did not grow as rapidly due to the climate and the Iceland geographical location. At that time, about 25% to 40% of Iceland was covered by forests. Without trees, the soil became impoverished due to the lack of organic matter and the disruption of the nitrogen cycle, resulting in an infertile and barren land. To address this issue, in 1945, Håkon Bjarnason, an Icelandic forester, traveled to Alaska, which has similar climate conditions, to find plants that could thrive in Iceland. He brought back 2 spoonfuls of Nootka Lupin seeds. The primary goal was to use them to fix nitrogen in the soil. The Nootka Lupin thrived because it efficiently fertilized the soil through nodules that facilitated nitrogen fixation. Nodules are modifications of the root hair, which certain plants develop to improve their nitrogen nutrition under the action of certain bacteria that allow them to fix atmospheric nitrogen in the ground. And as seen previously, plants need nitrogen to develop, and the lupin can ensure its nitrogen nutrition via the symbiotic fixation of nitrogen from the air, which takes over the assimilation of mineral nitrogen from the soil through the roots. Other species of plants native to Iceland also have this function, but they are less effective, that's why lupin was chosen. So, the original plan was to let the lupin enrich the soil to plant other varieties of plants later. As a reminder, nitrogen is a chemical element present in proteins. Proteins are the primary player in cellular life because they ensure enzyme synthesis, structural rules, DNA packaging, etc. But a problem quickly became apparent to the Icelanders. Lupin does not share the land. They grow up to 1 meter in height with leaves that block the sunlight. So the other plants can't get it, which means they can't operate photosynthesis. We obtain a situation of strong energy competitiveness between plants. Now, let's talk about how did lupin spread. So there are 3 main factors. The first one is environment. Lupins grows well in sandy and rocky soils, even gravel sometimes, making them suitable for Iceland's barren landscapes. The second factor is their reproduction and their life cycle. Self-pollination is common to many lupin species. Lupinus Nootka-Tensis depends for about 70% on self-pollinations, a process which consists of moving a pollen grain from one flower to the stigma of the same flower or another flower of the same plant. But cross-pollination, which means the delivery of a pollen grain from one plant to the style of another plant, also seems to happen. By definition, pollination corresponds to the transfer of a pollen grain to a stigma, which allows the fertilization of the plant. The fertilization leads to the development of a fruit that contains seeds. Seeds being the primary route of dispersal of the Lupin Nootka-Tensis, we are going to talk about them, because lateral shoots expansion is pretty rare among these species. After seed germination in spring, Nootka Lupin grows very quickly, about 60 cm in just 3 years in an Icelandic-like climate. After 3 years, they usually produce flower and seeds for the first times, which they do every year thereafter. Plants increase their number of stems and overall size year after year, which means more flowers, which means more seeds. The lifespan of individual plants can probably exceed 20 years under favorable conditions. The most modest plants can produce more than 2,000 seeds in one season. seed production is so important in some lupin plots in Iceland that we can find 1,800 seeds per meter square in the ground. Those seeds in the ground can become seed bank in the soil that can last for many years even though the plot of Lupin Nootka-Tensis degenerated. And now let's talk about the third and last factor, the dispersion of the seeds. So their seeds disperse from 1 to 3 meters from the plant, so plots can expand up to 1 to 2 meters per year on flat ground, but the rate of expansion of plants can be considerably higher in sloping soil and along water courses. Seeds can also be transported on long distances by river and meltwater. Dispersal can also be caused by strong winds, and some hypotheses indicate that birds such as Turdus iliacus could spread seeds over long distances. It's an example of coevolution. And a study showed that the expansion of a lupin population in the Skaftafell National Park, located in the southeast part of Iceland, showed an exponential growth of its population from 17,000 meters square in 1988 to 230,000 meters square in the 2000s. To synthesize, Nootka Lupin produces a lot of seeds, grows quickly and grow in groups. These characteristics mean that they spread quickly because, unlike in Alaska, there is nothing to stop them in Iceland because there is no forest. In conclusion, the Nootka Lupin managed to colonize Iceland thanks to the massive deforestation in the 9th century, its great tolerance to arid soil, and its very efficient mode of reproduction and the absence of competition during its introduction. This plant has therefore created numerous debates, where each side has numerous arguments, and the controversial management of lupin is today in the hands of the Icelandic government, on which all eyes are on. Thanks for listening, and see you for the next video.